So let's just kind of think a little bit about, so I'm going to ask one or two other questions, or read out a couple of questions. So is refocusing an addiction onto your work a worthy goal here? What happens when your work no longer fulfills him or he becomes addicted to work? And then we'll get to psychology in FPS and RTS too. So the first thing is, let's just think a little bit about kind of like addictive personalities. So a lot of people that I work with say that they have an addictive personality. And if you think about it, they'll say like, okay, I used to be addicted to like video games and now I'm addicted to like sex, or that's not going to happen for gamers. But, they'll say they're addicted to, alcohol now. They sort of trade one addiction for another. And so like some people, and so they kind of say that, I have an addictive personality. And so I think that like some of the addictive personality has truth to it. There's some neuroscience evidence that there is something like an addictive personality, but most of the time, I think the reason people trade one addiction for another is because they're not dealing with the underlying cause of addiction. So there's a great concept from Buddhist philosophy called the realm of hungry ghosts. And in like Buddhist like mythology or cosmology or whatever you want to call it, they have heaven, they have earth, and they have hell. And between earth and hell, there's this thing called the realm of hungry ghosts. And the realm of hungry ghosts is like full of these souls that are always hungry and like never feel full. So no matter how much they like eat, they can eat and they can eat and they can eat, they just never feel satisfied. And when I think of an addiction, I think about the realm of hungry ghosts. So people who are addicted are usually like looking for something, right? So I think what Henry's looking for is like human connection. I think he's looking for accomplishment. I think he's looking for like some sense of thrill. Like he wants to be someone. I can only imagine, I had periods of my life where I was a no one. And what I wanted more than anything else, I tried to climb to the top of the Warcraft 3 ladder because like that felt like being someone. And so we have these basic parts of us that if we try to fulfill them with one thing or another thing, it's like not going to work. The only way to fill some holes is like with the thing that the hole fits. And so if what you need is like authentic human connection, so I deal with this a lot in terms of like sex addiction. So people who have, bad sex addictions, what they're really looking for is like connection with another human being. And they feel that way, and the way that other humans like respond to them after they have sex is like very warm and loving, and they cuddle and they cook them breakfast the next morning. And what they really want is that day in and day out. But the only way that they know how to get that is by like having sex. And so sex addiction, at its core, if we look at behavioral addictions, there's like a hungry ghost in there, right? There's a part of them that feels unfulfilled and wants to feel like loved and valued as a person. And the only way that they know how to get that is through sex. And so they can change that, they can change the sex for something else. But until they feel like they're like loved, until they feel good about themselves, until they feel valued like on a stable basis, and chances are some evidence suggests that you need to kind of feel that way for about 2 years, that 50% of this stuff can just go away and be cured. And that's kind of a slightly different, I'm drawing on some science from kind of another disease, or not disease, but a disorder called borderline personality disorder. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that or not. But yeah, 2 years. So people with borderline personality disorder who also oftentimes have addictive behaviors and also oftentimes have like high risk sexual behaviors, their basic problem is that their sense of self is like not well formed. So what's on the inside is like empty. So what happens is like nature abhors a vacuum, and so they fill themselves up with the way that other people treat them. And that causes them to engage in a lot of like high risk behavior because the way they feel on the inside depends on how other people treat them. Yeah, so I recently discovered that like BPD is way more common. Maybe we can just talk entirely about BPD. And so I think it's sort of like this hungry ghost thing where in order for someone to be cured of BPD, which is possible, and people don't really realize that, if you can be in a stable relationship where someone can put up with your ups and downs, like put up with kind of your fear of abandonment for 2 years and not abandon you, 50% of people get better. And they sort of get cured. Because then they sort of start to realize, oh, I actually like am kind of a stable person. I have value. I've been able to see this and it's been reinforced enough times in a particular way that sort of makes them feel like calm selves. So kind of going back to the addictive personality, I think that, you can trade one addiction for another. So BPD and abusive behavior. So we can talk about BPD if you guys want to, but let me just finish up with addictive personality, and then we can kind of dive back into BPD. So I think that you can trade one addiction for another, and you can also throw yourself into work. Tom, am I supposed to be doing something about that? Game just chatting? I don't know. You can throw yourself into your work, but I think at the end of the day, until you satisfy like whatever is missing inside you, like that thing is always going to be there and you'll always look for some other way to satisfy it. And for gamers, I think a lot of getting away from video games, which is kind of what I was trying to push Henry on, is that if we think about it, like, when he quit Clash of Kings, like he felt alone, he felt depressed, he felt like he didn't have friends anymore. And so you're not going to be able to quit the game if your primary community is the game. I see. Okay, thanks. So I do think you can sort of throw yourself into your work, and that can be bad, or I think it's less bad because on the one hand, at least you're doing something productive. But I still think it's a problem because at the end of the day, you're still not targeting like the real thing. So whether you're addicted to games or work, I guess it's better to be addicted to games because at least you're going to be making money instead of spending money. But at the end of the day, I think true peace comes from sort of resolving resolving sort of the core conflict.